Morning decisions. A creamy mocha frappuccino drink? A sweet vanilla? Maybe a smooth caramel? Or that white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Start your day with bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drinks. Pick up a bottle near you wherever you buy your groceries.
The Red Apple Media Podcast Network presents This is Protecting America. Now, here's Emmy-winning journalist Rita Cosby.
Welcome to another edition of Protecting America. I'm Rita Cosby. Well, there is a new sheriff in town, and his name is Tom Homan. He is the new border czar-elect under President Trump, and he was ICE director under President Trump in his first term at the White House. So what enormous challenges are ahead for the next Trump administration regarding the border and keeping our nation safe? Well, joining us now to discuss this and more is Texas Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne. Congresswoman, it's so great to have you here.
Oh, it's great to be back on. I really appreciate it. And man, what exciting times that we're seeing right now, right? Every single day, it seems like there's new announcements coming out of this new administration with fantastic people that they're putting in place. But I got to tell you, my favorite is Tom Homan. I cannot wait for him. He's already started, right? I mean, they haven't even been sworn in yet. And yet Tom has already taken the bull by the horns and letting people know this is a new sheriff in town. And this is how we're going to move forward.
Is he the right man sort of for this moment? Because you look at his background and he served under a whole bunch of presidents, as you know, not just President Trump. So He knows what works and he also knows what doesn't work. I love Tom Homan.
Well, and he says exactly what people are thinking in a very nonsensical manner. I mean, he's just no nonsense, very direct, and he has the answers. He has seen it. He is supportive of what the CBP is going through down at the border. He knows it because he's been down there. He's talked to them. He's actually worked it. He's got the experience. He was not a DEI hire. This man is experienced beyond no other. And the answers that he's bringing to the table, the solutions are tried and true. And, he's as you mentioned, he's been in this for decades. But he has the backbone, and I think obviously has the support of President Trump to be able to get done exactly what this country needs, exactly what it let us know at this past election, what it wants. And that is to have a secure border, that is to send folks, especially and prioritize the ones who are committing crimes right now in our country, to send them out of our country, and to be able to have an organized immigration process where we know who is coming in our country and they're doing it based on merit. And these are things that, 3/4 of Americans have already said that they want. And God bless President Trump for tagging him, and God bless Tom Homan for being able to take on this problem, because it's huge. And I would say it's the number one problem facing our country right now.
You brought up President Trump and the mandate. Look, he won the presidency. He won both houses of Congress. Clearly, there was a thirst in this country who said enough. And also, you brought up the sense of also Tom Homan. He knows President Trump. That's also a good thing, too, because it's a very complex problem and lots of layers to it. And yet, this is a guy who's already been there in that role. I think it makes a lot of sense to have that. And also, President Trump certainly feels emboldened by the voting. And the polls are showing that people, yes, they want bad people out of this country, especially those who have committed serious crimes.
And he should feel emboldened. I mean, we are Americans. We are a very compassionate, very caring group. When we see things happen, across the seas, we're typically the first people to write checks to send items over and to try to help in whatever way possible. We are a very compassionate populace. But when we see what has happened in the last 4 years, 20 million people in our country illegally, crime is rampant on our street, kids who are dying from fentanyl, mothers, wives, sisters who are being targeted and raped and beaten and murdered. This is what we're seeing. And of course, people are going to rise up and say, this is ridiculous. And that's just where you start. But then even, on a basis that doesn't have to do with violence, it doesn't have to do with death, but it has to do with available resources. When we see our taxpayer dollars going and paying for folks who should not be here to get free phones, to be able to get free health care, to be able to get free education, to be able to get free housing, and it is at a cost. Nothing is ever free. And when we see our debt escalating to $36 trillion, and then when we see FEMA using some of its dollars where, it could be moving, to help Americans who are actually paying into the system, but it's paying people who shouldn't be here, which incentivizes more people to be here. This is common sense. So the Biden-Harris administration can tell the people whatever they want them to think, but people actually have an ability to be able to see. And when what they're hearing does not coincide with what they're physically seeing, what they're seeing in reality, they're going to start to be suspect. And when you've got a man like Tom Homan, when you've got a man like Donald Trump who come in and say, this is a problem, you're not crazy, this is exactly what's causing it, and this is how we fix it. Those are the kind of people that you want to support. And absolutely, looking at the Remain in Mexico policy, making sure that we are not, having this catch and release programs where you don't even know who is coming into your country. When you're giving them taxpayer plane tickets and bus tickets and sending them, and you have no idea where they're going. Not to mention, yes, you are definitely sending in terrorists. Yes, you have definitely released criminals into, people who have already committed crimes like murder, like rape, theft. In their own country, they're going to repeat that here. But then you think about the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of children, innocent kids who are at our border, who we have lost in the system, who have come into America, and we've got no idea where they are. But for sure, many of them are being child trafficked, many are being sex trafficked. And you just think to yourself, how can this happen in our country? And then again, you're going to support people like Tom Homan and Donald Trump who are outlining exactly what we need to do to be able to stop it and get control of it. And January 20th cannot get here soon enough. When you look at how the Harris-Biden administration is doubling down on opening our borders and what they're doing today to have even a higher flood of people come into our country illegally, it's absolutely ridiculous. It's insane.
Last week was our first playoff game, and my plaque psoriasis was so itchy under all my gear. Sometimes just thinking about scratching could take me out of the moment. And then my doctor told me I could get clearer skin with a pill called Otezla.
Otezla apremilast is a prescription medicine used to treat adult patients with plaque psoriasis for whom phototherapy or systemic therapy is appropriate. Otezla can help you get clearer skin after just 4 months.
Okay, ready for the next game. Talking to my doctor about a pill was a total game changer.
Don't use Otezla if you're allergic to it. Get medical help right away if you have trouble breathing or swallowing, swelling of the face, lips, tongue, throat, or arms. Severe diarrhea, nausea or vomiting, depression, suicidal thoughts, or weight loss can happen. Tell your doctor if any of these occur and if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts. Live in the moment. Ask your doctor about Otezla. Call 1-844-4-OTEZLA or visit Otezla.com for prescribing info about cost, and more.
Plan on flying? In order to board domestic flights, your driver's license or state-issued ID must be a real ID. Learn how to get your real ID today at tsa.gov/real ID or visit your local DMV.
It is incredible, Congresswoman, that even in the presidential campaign, she'd try to kind of pivot sometimes and say, oh, yeah, we do need to do more security, and then made it sound like she's the person. It really was such unbelievable smoke and mirrors. And the fact that they allowed this, and it really is allowing, they and obviously Alejandro Mayorkas, the DHS secretary.
Encouraging.
Yeah, encouraging.
It's not just allowing, but encouraging, incentivizing.
Yes, a great point, because you're right. They were saying, come one, come all, here's what's happening. And the fact that continued, isn't it astounding to you that someone, and it's like an American president and an American vice president and someone running for president, Kamala Harris there, saying, okay, don't worry about the border, turning a blind eye. It is just dereliction of duty.
Well, and then lying to the public and saying, okay, almost as if it was a threat. Well, hire me, support me, vote for me, get me back in office, and then we'll fix it. It's like, you've had 4 years. You're the cause of the problem. We saw the work that Donald Trump did. We saw the negotiating that Mike Pompeo did in Mexico to get them to work with us on the Remain in Mexico policy. And by the way, that they're doing now. Look at just the ability to be able to negotiate with a threat in Mexico and China and Canada. You will help us with our fentanyl problem in China because this is where it's coming from. You, Canada, and Mexico will help us to prevent people from entering our country illegally because we know where they're coming from. They're coming from Mexico. They're coming directly from Canada over our borders. And you need to be part of the solution because everybody wants to work with the U.S. We have a market unlike any other. We are, again, a very generous people. We've got a fantastic economy. People want to work with our country. And we're not using military. But the idea of using tariffs to get the attention of these world leaders who have for the last 4 years worked with what they know is a complete, knob in our Oval Office, who has absolutely no backbone, who has let them get away with everything. And finally, that's not going to happen. Not only do you have a new sheriff in town at our border with Tom Homan, but you got a new one in the Oval Office. You got a new commander in chief, and he's going to negotiate like a strong leader does, and that's from a position of power. And using the ability to threaten tariffs. Now, that's not necessarily saying he's going to use them. It's going to be as high as 25% or as high as 10% in the case of China. But just the ability to be able to have that as a negotiating point and know that he's got the backbone to back it up will make a difference, and it already has. You're seeing these world leaders come to the table already, and he hasn't even been sworn into office yet.
Yeah, you bring up a great point because already these world leaders are going, whoa, 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 whether it's on the border, whether it's on other issues too as well. And the issue, as you know, with President Trump, too, he doesn't say, OK, let's create a red line and then you can cross it a million times and I won't do anything. They know that when he speaks with authority. So do you think that can absolutely make a difference and bring some of these others like Mexico and others to the table?
And he's putting people in his cabinet that have an equal amount of backbone. I mean, again, Tom Homan, John Ratcliffe, Pam Bundy. I mean, these folks have been put through, the fire, and they have come out hardened, smarter, and more strategic than ever. And I think, him having had the last 4 years to really vet folks for his cabinet that he knows, that he trusts, that share his vision, that want what's best for America and have proven it, I think great things are about to happen.
Yeah, I think many people feel that way. And as you talk about, it can't come soon enough. One of the numbers we just heard recently was over 300,000 missing kids in this country. Yeah. Isn't it it's astounding to me that here we are, the greatest country in the world, and yet we're suddenly missing 300,000 kids. And I know that that's going to be a priority for President Trump. Your reaction of just how tough it is going to find these kids and also how horrible of a situation clearly many of them are in right now.
Well, I mean, you just read the reports. And you watch like the 2 or 3 year old little girl who was at the border yesterday without her parents, and you don't know what's going to happen to her. It is horrifying to think that that's happening in our country, and that it happened and again was encouraged. But I am very hopeful, very optimistic about what's going to happen, this next year to find them. And I know people are critical that how much cost it's going to be to actually, target some of these folks who are in our country illegally and to deport them. But I will tell you, starting with not ending with and not having everybody at the table, everything on the table as far as who you could deport that's here illegally, but starting with those that are committing crimes is the best way to at least get the ball rolling, to start working with the cities that want to work and want to have safer cities, that want to protect their citizens, that want to make sure that they have a strong economy, which means getting rid of as much violent crime in their areas as possible, in their regions, in their communities as possible. Working with those cities to target criminal illegal aliens and working in a partnership at the state, local, and federal level is going to be the most effective, most efficient way possible. That's how you get the ball rolling. And these sanctuary cities, you want to have that crime, you will be voted out eventually. But if you're going to stand in the way of the federal government protecting its American citizens, you better understand that there's going to be consequences. And it's not just a threat. If you are harboring criminals, then there's already laws against that. When everybody takes an office, an oath of office when they get elected, and they take that oath, they are promising. They are claiming an oath that they will protect the rights of their citizens, that they will hold up the Constitution, and that they will obey by the laws of the state. They will be a direct contradiction of that if they are trying to prevent the federal government from targeting and taking out criminal illegal aliens. And they had better understand that there's going to be consequences, not just at the polling box, but potentially in a court of law.
Do you think that President Trump and Tom Homan will carry through with that? Because even Tom Homan just said recently to these liberal cities that have said, no, we won't help in deporting and we'll resist deporting, even going through those efforts. The message was, don't test us. So what do you think Tom Homan and Trump will do?
Oh, I think absolutely. I think what's happening is you're going to have these mayors, because I work with them. I was on the board of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and I had to deal with these sanctuary city mayors who were very sanctimonious, who were very critical of me because I worked with Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Because at one point in time when I was on city council and I was mayor, we had the highest number of deportations of criminal illegal aliens per capita than any other city in the country. They were very critical. But these mayors are also blowhards. They're going to say whatever they say because they think that this is going to make them popular. It's going to get them headlines. It will get them interviews on CNN. But I guarantee you, as soon as there's a crackdown and they start hearing one from their citizens, right, from their residents, they're going to hear from it directly, that they don't want them protecting and they don't want their taxpayer dollars going to this, and they want their police actually enforcing laws. They're going to hear from it directly from their citizens. But as soon as a couple of mayors get made an example, they potentially get arrested and charges are going to be thrown at them, you are going to see all the rest of them cave. That they're going to have had their 15 minutes of fame and they're going to back down, recognizing the fact that this is not legal, that they don't want to have to deal with a hassle, that the fame is not worth it, and that, quite honestly, they don't have the support and backing of the residents in their community.
Yeah, can you imagine the blowback that they will get, especially if it comes to these migrant, folks who have committed serious crimes that we know of? Can you imagine the public relations? It would be, okay, you're protecting this individual. This individual did this to a child. This individual did this to this. And this mayor is the one who doesn't want him deported and wants him to stay in your community. Can you imagine the public outcry? It doesn't matter if you're Republican, Democrat. Everybody wants to be safe.
Absolutely right. And I'll tell you, I remember, I had some hard elections at the local level, but even folks who did not support me in campaigns, when they saw that I was willing to stand up and fight for, the rule of law, that I was supporting our police when I was working with federal law enforcement, even those folks who were skeptical were very supportive and very thankful that that was my position. So I would tell these mayors, recognize the fact that you're not hearing from the silent majority if this is your position, that you will hear from them. As soon as a little girl gets hurt in your community, as soon as somebody gets murdered, as soon as someone's teenager dies as a result of fentanyl from a cartel member that you are protecting. I mean, this is long-term serious consequences that you've got to think about. You will get the support of your residents. You will get that support if you do the right thing, and that is protecting them. That is following through with support of local law enforcement and making sure that you are holding yourselves to that standard of law that you claim to, that you took an oath. That is the simple fact of it. I have been there. I've lived through it. I've seen it. And I cannot tell them enough that they will have the support if they do the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's great to hear, too, from your own experience. Also, you're there in Texas, of course. Texas is right there on the front lines. You, Governor Abbott, all of you guys have done an incredible job. What is Texas doing right that the other states can learn from? Because that was one of the things that Tom Homan talked about this week, sort of Texas serving as a role model, because certainly crossings are down. And you look at the buoys, you look at just all the efforts. Texas had to take matters into its own hands.
Yeah, Texas had to spend billions of dollars to be able to do the job that the federal government was not doing, and that was to protect our borders. We obviously have a large, how many thousands of miles that are right on the border. We have got to protect it. So he did whatever he could by calling in, our state guard, by looking at physical barriers that we had the Biden administration coming in and actually cutting wire. It was ridiculous, suing the state. But Governor Abbott recognized the fact that, look, this is what his citizens want. This is what the residents of Texas need. They need to have safe borders. They were willing to put that money in. They were willing to invest. But on top of that, they were also willing to work with federal law enforcement at the state level to be able to partner, to be able to share databases, to be able to share information, to be able to share resources. But the other thing the state did was they outlawed sanctuary cities. They said, you know what, I'm sorry, cities like Houston, you want to be a sanctuary city? No, not in our state. That is not what the majority of residents want. And when we look at every Texan that we're going to protect. So they outlawed sanctuary cities for the entire state. And, I think a lot of states, a lot of governors, a lot of state reps and state senators need to look at that as the solution, because by doing that and saying we are not going to, we're going to be able to withhold resources from going into your community if you are not following the law, is an important negotiating tactic. And other governors and other states need to recognize that. And I do think Texas is leading the way. It's sad that we've had to spend as many billions of dollars as we have. It's sad that we've had to face, lawsuits from our own federal government, for Pete's sake, for protecting the borders, because the federal government's not. But Texas is willing to step up. They're willing to do it. And I think it's been a fine example, especially when Abbott got, some of those folks who are here illegally on buses and brought them to these sanctuary cities and said, this is how does it feel up close and personal? And watch them cry, uncle at that point. Up until then, it was Texas's problem. But when you start sending them to places like New York, you start sending them to cities like Chicago, and all of a sudden those mayors who have, ridiculed the state of Texas, ridiculed the governor, for its policies, all of a sudden go, oops, we were wrong. That was a great thing.
ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track, and ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
Yeah, that was an eye-opener, and they suddenly realized that, like you said, it's America's problem. It's not just Texas's problem. I want to sort of end where we started. You talked about sort of the new sheriff in town and the sort of breath of fresh air, and what is the morale, too, of like the border agents, too? I'm sure you talked to a lot of the folks in Border Patrol, because prior to the election, a number of them said there will be mass resignations if Kamala Harris gets into the Oval Office, because they knew what was to come, and she has not supported them, as we saw in so many instances. Is there a sense now that they can finally do their job, whether it's in Texas or elsewhere?
We saw record numbers of suicides of Border Patrol under the Biden-Harris administration. And it was because they felt helpless to be able to do their job, and they saw the tragedies that were happening at the border. It's funny you ask, what they're saying now. I've been down, in November, down to help some of our candidates who were in, on border districts to get reelected or to get elected. And you talk to Border Patrol. Just this last weekend, I was on a plane with some border agents. And I'll tell you, there is a renewed sense of optimism, of hope. They all have a tremendous amount of respect for Tom Homan. They have a tremendous amount of respect for President Trump, and they recognize the fact that they're going to get the resources that they need. And more importantly, those resources are going to be directed where they should be, as opposed to these feel-good missions of, let's get people through as quickly as possible, not knowing who they are. So I think what I have heard from the Border Patrol, Border Protection agents that I've spoke with is optimism and a renewed sense of focus.
Yeah, and now they can finally kind of do what they're supposed to do, as opposed to babysitting or processing, right?
Exactly.
Well,
this is why they signed up to do those jobs, and they have been dehumanized, they have been demonized under this last administration. They wanted to hold them criminal for doing their job, and I think recognizing the fact that laundry is about to be trashed, the trash is about to be taken out in January. and new people are coming in that respect their job, that respect them. It's very heartening to see.
Well, that's great. They deserve it. They work so hard, as you know firsthand. And by the way, everybody, be sure to subscribe and share to this great podcast. Such important information. Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne, you are terrific. And you just do such a great job in Texas and in America and in Congress. We love having you here on the podcast. Thanks so much for joining us.
You're awesome, Rita. Thank you very much. I hope you have a fantastic holiday with your family.
Thank you. You too. And everybody, I'll be back soon with another great edition of Protecting America. And of course, you can catch me every weeknight, 10 p.m. to midnight on the legendary WABC Radio. This is Rita Cosby, and thanks for all you do to protect America.